Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis, Technical Evangelist here at CTC, and today we're going to talk about Hive, focusing very specifically on the analytics portion of Hive. As always with all of our webinars, feel free please to post questions about our topic today in the questions window, and I will try to answer those in line. There will also be a large questions and answers portion at the very end, as I suspect there will be a lot of questions. This, of course, is being recorded, so this will also be available for you to review in the future. Best access through the Hive add-in and using the videos link from the About screen. So let's kind of start talking about what we're going to cover here. I mean, Hive itself, Hive the CMS, is a pretty decent, really good content management system. And of course, we're ever improving it. It's also a project performance logger, a project activity logger. There's actually a tool, a portion of this that goes along with Hive that's called PAL, Project Activity Logger. But once you get it all set up, how do you get access to the data? And for that matter, how do you set that part up? So we want to take a look in this webinar at how you can set it up. We're going to take a look at how you can configure it, how you can get it, then configure it, and then ultimately the whole goal here is to look at the stock reports and then also walk through exactly how you can get the back-end data and leverage that in Microsoft's Power BI environment. Power BI is not a tool that we sell. It's something that Microsoft offers. Most of us have access to it through our BIM 365 subscriptions. And really, that gives you access to tons of data and really powerful reports right there at your fingertips, giving you a great deal of information and insight on the health of your content library and your projects. So let's talk about how we're going to do this. So we're going to define some prerequisites for these analytics. This is important because without these prerequisites in place, you're not getting any data. And so we got to talk about how do you get data. Then we're going to take a look at how you can access Hive's analytics, how you can get those original, core data files, and then also we're going to go through the exercise today of downloading and setting up the Power BI template live as I can make it right in front of you here. And so since I'm not big on death by PowerPoint, we're going to go in and start doing this live. So let's start from the core here, which is the Hive Portal. For you to be able to do any of the things that we're going to talk about today, you have to be some kind of admin level, preferably a CMS admin, and also likely a project admin for some of that project-based data, and possibly even a users and groups admin, because that'll give you all of the rights. All three of those kind of stack together, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute here. But you kind of need some kind of level of admin rights to be able to even see the dashboard tab here. If you can see the dashboard tab, fantastic. You're well on your way to leveraging the data that is being served through the Hive system, the Hive ecosystem. Though, to really gain benefits here and talk about all this information fully, we need to talk about some of the setup in the first place. When the CMS gets installed on people's computers, the CMS being, of course, the add-in directly here out of Hive where you can open up the Hive CMS, when this gets installed, it inherently, as users sign in and use it, begins logging some data. So for the CMS-based data, long as it's installed and people are using it, it's logging some information. The other portion, though, is the project activity logger, which watches everything that doesn't happen from the Hive CMS. And to get that set up, we need to kind of go back into the Hive portal and take a look at something that you're going to need to get and configure. So in projects or in CMS, either way, but I usually go through projects here in my case. In projects, go to settings and you can get the latest installer for Hive itself. This would be Hive 21.0.8 as of today. And there's also a project activity logger installer inside there as well. And there's an Active Directory synchronizer installer in here also. So when you download this, what you effectively get is, where'd it go on my screen? It's off on the side. Here we go. It's this zip file here, CTC Hive 2021. This file, when you extract it, you get a bunch of help documentation, user setup guide information, and you get the 3 installers that come along with Hive, one being the Hive CMS itself, one being the PAL, the project activity logger. That's required for the project-based data. And there's an account synchronizer, which is a great tool if you're an IT admin or the person responsible for user and group management. Makes it real easy to manage your users and groups with the AD sync system if that's something your company is heavily vested in. Fantastic. This is the part, though, that I'm going to focus on pretty heavily with the installation part. You install this on all user computers. In addition, the PAL, the project activity logger, because it's a silent tool, it just runs in the background. It has to know where to put its information, which company it's supposed to log that data to. I mean, you don't want your data going to my company. That would be silly. You wouldn't be able to see your report. So you have to tell it where to go. And to do that, there's this config file that you download. This download right here, when I download it, it's just a little hiveconfig.json. The installation instructions tell you to put this in every user's licensing folder, the program data CTC licensing folder. And when you put it there, then the project activity logger will then know where to log its information, which company it goes to, which basically tells my PAL, my project activity logger, to put its data here. Okay, that's the most complicated part of all of this, I think, is the getting it to log in the first place, and it's actually pretty simple. You download the installers, you install the PAL, you download the config, you get the JSON, you put it in licensing, you're done. That's it. You're set up and ready to rock and roll. As users begin opening up Revit, earlier today I opened up Revit, I opened up a project. I haven't done a sync to central yet, but I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. When I run a sync to central, the project activity logger in the background is watching that. As I'm spending time in a view, as I'm making edits in a view, the project activity logger is watching that. And the whole purpose is so you can see how Revit is performing, right? That's the purpose of these analytics, to see what people are searching in the CMS and to see how your projects are performing while they're using Revit in general. So that data, that's where kind of the key of today's stuff, it kind of all ties together. That information at an entry level can be viewed right here on the dashboard. If you've got rights to see the stuff, you can get to the dashboard here. You can take a look at your overview of the enterprise-based information. How many total users do I have in my company? How many users are active using some CTC tools now? How many total projects am I tracking and total libraries? User statistics about what offices are they associated to? Who are the users? You know, in Bloomington here, which users are associated to my Bloomington office versus the St. Paul office versus, you know, based on department down here, who's an architecture user versus a civil user, right? These are all things that I can begin to track in my environment if I put that information into Hive in the first place. In the case of Revit versions and Revit add-ins, I can start to understand what versions of Revit are installed on people's computers and when potentially they were updated, right? I can start understanding what Revit add-ins happen to be loaded from a user's computer. This list tends to take a while on my computer because I've got a lot of add-ins. So it gives me that list here, and I can start to see, you know, when that was last referenced back to the Hive portal. Like in some cases, it was a little bit late last month, and in some cases, it was reported as of today, just now. This got reported that I was using a specific application. And that's meaningful as a BIM manager because you can now begin to understand some of the relationships between some of the add-ins, and if there's a crashing issue, potentially which add-ins that user has to see if it's a common one that perhaps is causing some crashing, right? There's also a bunch of project-based data, and that ties in with this projects portion up here. Now, in a previous webinar, we talked about setting up projects and the mapping of paths and some of that tracking of the data. But once you've got that going, you can start to understand some of the basic overview of information. What are my top 10 largest Revit project models that are in production? Which projects are approaching deadlines? And clearly, I haven't updated the date on this one for a while. Which projects have the most time invested in them? Who's doing most of the contribution to my data? What's the sync to central time and file open time across my whole company for all project types? And what projects are opening at those speeds? So I can start to really monitor what's going on here. I can also start digging in deeper into project summaries and seeing like, oh yeah, for this project, for this model, who's working on it? How much time has been spent in there? How many items have been edited? Large projects for this particular project, or large Revit models for this particular project. Who's spending time here, right? All kinds of information that I can start to dig into that is really valuable. Basic Revit property counts for total numbers, breakdown of my views, last sync to central and load time. How has it been performing over time? For example, earlier today, when I opened this up, it's saved. Actually, this was my save from a few seconds ago. 1.55 seconds to sync to central. It's already there, right? My open time before that was 13.9 seconds to open it up. 24 warnings reported in that model. This is all information that you get a ton of value from just passively as users are working. This data gets logged. That's the power of the Hive analytics, right, from the project's point of view. And then the CMS itself, the content management system, also has some basic overview information, right? 14 libraries, 6,200 total entries of content here, 15 users favorited, or 15 total favorites from different users. I can see how people are searching, what they're searching, when they're searching, who's doing what. So if I say me, Sean Zerbis here, if I just check what my searches were, it'll come back with some, updated common search terms. I've done a total of 737 total searches, apparently. 43 of those searches came back with nothing. It's because I do searches that intentionally filter everything out sometimes. I search way more than I drop content because I'm oftentimes doing demos and discussions with clients. So 85% of the time I'm just searching. And then 14% of the time I'm actually placing content. That's all meaningful stuff to know. I mean, if you're seeing users that are doing that, if they're not a BIM manager, if they're, a designer in the company and they're searching way more in Hive than they're actually placing content, that could be a problem. That's not efficient. And so you can start figuring out, what are they searching and why are they coming back with nothing, right? I can also understand how my Revit content has been used. I can see what my breakdown by family versions are, what projects perhaps things have been dropped into, which specific models, what families were placed into those models, the breakdown of family categories by model. There's a lot you can come back with here, right? As a BIM manager, you can understand the tagging that's happening in your families, the top most used tags, which ones are assigned or not assigned at all, underused, so they may be assigned to things, but they haven't been searched by anybody, or they're searched very rarely. Meaningful information. So these are all just stock reports that you can get at your fingertips from the web portal. And in fact, key point here, you can use this web portal from any web-enabled device. So many of us out there have smartphones, have tablets. Go to the web portal. You can get these exact same reports on your iPhone, on your Android phone, on your tablet, on your kid's Chromebook. I mean, you name it. You can get these reports wherever there's a web browser. Now, if you want to go deeper, and this is kind of the real meat and potatoes of today's discussion, if you want to go deeper and you want to make your own reports beyond our sort of stock base amount of data, feel free. We encourage you to do that. That's actually one of the things we've always been about, is openness of data and giving you the power yourself, and as free as possible. So we distribute a template here in Microsoft Power BI. You can just download that, and that'll give you that Power BI template, which I encourage you to save as your own name, put it someplace, keep it for your own purposes. The CMS, the PAL, and the Hive users and groups right here, this is where your rights as an admin come into play. If you're doing overall full reporting, you should probably have rights or admin level rights as a CMS admin, a project admin, and a user and group admin, or be an organization admin, which automatically grants you God level rights across the entire system, right? But if you've got rights to these, they will show up here to let you email to yourself from the Hive system, whoever you're signed in as, to email these to yourself. A little bit earlier today, I clicked on this. So my last sync to central and probably the open of my project file won't be in this report because I had already asked for these. Sometimes they can take, 5-10 minutes to wait to get, because it sends a command in the back end to get all of your company's data and send it to you, right? So I've already got them, I believe. Let me just go to my emails here. Yeah, I do. And so I'm just going to kind of download each of these. So you're going to see a little download flicker since I'm grabbing these off screen here. It's going to download each of these files as Excel files. And in my case, throws them in my downloads folder. So these are the 3 reports: the Hive users and groups, this last one, the Hive CMS Power BI file, that was this first one here, and the Hive PAL BI file, that was the second one here. Each of those now have been downloaded and are ready for me to use. So I have the Power BI template, and I've got the 3 source data files here from the Hive system. Anytime I want to update these, I simply re-download, re-ask for the email. It'll give me that data from that point in time, and I can begin to use this. So how do I use this? Well, you're going to need Microsoft Power BI. And so what I tend to do myself is this. In my downloads folder, where I now have those 4 files, you can see I've got a Hive Reports CTC Express Tools. I'm going to do a new folder right now, new folder, Hive Reports for webinar, okay, for today. And I'm going to take all these files and I'm going to drop them into that webinar folder. I do need to know what this path is. I do need to know what my company ID is, which is effectively this long string of digits here. Don't change that name. That needs to stay the same. But this little long string of digits here is what I'm going to need to know so that I know what my corporate ID is. This is how Hive uniquely identifies my company, CTC Express Tools, that I'm logged in as here, my demo company. So I'm going to open up this Power BI file, and we're going to configure this right now. Now, if you wanted to use a different tool set like Tableau or Click or Google Analytics, go for it. You can use whichever one you want. We distribute our template in the Microsoft Power BI environment because as an entry level, you can get in and use that for free. You do not have to buy it to use it at an entry level. You have to buy it if you want to start, distributing it or using it, at a higher level. But at an entry level, you can get in and try it out and see these reports and not have to invest an extra cent. You've purchased Hive. We want to give you access to these reports. That's not true with some of those other tools. So you have to pay for them, and it's a steeper learning curve for those other tools. This is fairly easy. Plenty of YouTube out there to tell you how to use Power BI. I'm going to open up this file in Microsoft Power BI. Let's give this thing a second to open up. Taking a minute because, I've got a lot of things running on my computer right now. It's just how stuff goes. But once this opens up, I'm going to tell it about these 3 files, where they're located, what folder they're in, what my company ID is, and I'm going to tell it to refresh. And it should effectively go through and give me all of the data. So here's that Power BI file. It's got a whole bunch of tabs of pre-configured reports that in some cases closely mimic what we have on the web portal, and in other cases go way beyond the web portal to show you some examples of other things that you can do. So what I'm going to do is go to the Home tab here in Microsoft Power BI. I'm going to go to Transform Data's drop down here, and I'm going to edit the parameters that exist. We pre-built in some parameters into this Power BI file, 2 in particular. One that tells me what my org ID is, which I'm going to replace with that portion of my file name, that 25-digit code that was in my files. And I'm going to tell this where it's located, which for me, in our example today, is in my downloads folder, and I can simply copy that path and paste it right here with a backslash at the end. And when I click OK, this is now going to ask me to apply these changes, which should let me apply it straight away. And it should let me just get this information in my my current Power BI report straight away. So we're going to give this thing a minute. Yep, it's loading up all the data right now. There's been relationships pre-built on this relationships area over here. We spent the time to go ahead and pre-build that for you inside of Power BI. And now that I have this, I can start to ask it more questions. So similar to what was going on the web portal, I can start to understand how my enterprise users are broken down, total of 19 at this point. If I click on St. Paul, hey, look, there's those 3 people here. If I go to add-ins, right, I can start to understand those exact same computers. Here's Sean Z3's computer with all my add-ins. Same stuff that was on the cloud. Breakdown of Revit versions, in this case by project. So if I wanted to isolate a specific project, I can see the last few saves here. Chris B and Sean Z were both using effectively the exact same Revit version. And that is fantastic because this helps me understand that I'm not going to have any crashing problems, right? So I can see that. I can see Revit versions overall not isolated by project. CMS data, company search statistics. Again, I can isolate a specific user and see all of that user's searches over time, and even isolate down to the specific point in time on that day, on that specific search. That was, I searched steel, I searched tag, EXT, Titus, and shared, right? Great, good to know. Like I can know exactly what was going on there. And one of those, actually the one that was tag, actually didn't return back any results, oddly enough. If I want to know about those that weren't returning results, I can isolate, hey, Sean Zerbis's searches. There's 149 apparently searches that had no results. And I can start to see, exactly what I was searching at that time, when there was filters or libraries or whatever that were at play. A breakdown of Revit content that's been dropped into projects, a breakdown of my tagging, my PAL information, my project activity data. This is, again, very similar to what was going on the site, but now I get to do more with it, right? I've got detailed performance information. So if I wanted to isolate a specific, let's see here, let's get rid of that. Oh, that's just doing radio button selection. That's fantastic. That's not what I wanted at all. Yeah, whatever. Let's pick a project here. So this particular project, I can see computer information. What kind of hard drive was being used for that particular project? What kind of video card was on that computer? So if I was seeing, in this case, there's not a lot of save data for it in the recent past, but if there was a bunch of save information, I could start to understand more about that, right? Other performance-based data, user summaries on where people are spending their time. This is a custom report that's not available on the site, right? Exactly what project was each person in, and how much time did they spend, and how many actions did they take in those projects while they were in there. So if I want to know where Sean spends all of his time, I can highlight Sean and see that I've spent 2.41 hours in a certain project and basically edited 5,500 elements. And I can see there's other projects where I've spent very little time, where I maybe opened them up for just a second or two, but I didn't actually make any or many changes, right? So I can understand where people are spending their time by views in the project. I can see warnings and total project information across the board and warnings counts. Like there's a lot of information here that y'all can use. And we even give you a template tab here at the end that sort of matches our formatting if you want to keep things all nice, neat, and consistent, right? And then once in Power BI, you have access to all of the fields that we export from that web environment, and you can start to ask it all kinds of information. Who is doing what, where, with which models and which Revit version, and you can get all of that information. I have taken that report and I have further customized it for my own purposes. I can go over here into my model summaries, and because of how I have my data structured, I can actually go grab a specific project and start to isolate things down. And again, there's that performance detail set over here where I can go, oh yeah, what's going on at this point in time? Oh, it was Sean on this computer with these specs. And this is some of that basic model information. So I can really start like isolating what's going on with those projects, right? All right. Think I've covered pretty much everything that I was intending to cover. And so I just want to recap a little bit here. Again, that management portal, hive21.ctcsoftware.com, you can access that from any web-enabled device. You can also request the emails be sent to you from any of those devices as well. So if you're away from your computer and you want to get that email, get that. And then when you get back to your desktop using Microsoft Power BI, by all means, download and use that information and take your, reports. Use the info how you want. Now, we talked a lot about how to get the data, but how do you get Hive in the first place? I know not everybody watching this, participating today, or viewing this recording after the fact will have Hive, and maybe you want to get Hive. So how do you get it? Well, best way to get it is to go to our corporate website. CTC Software, if I could spell, that would be lovely, ctcsoftware.com. And then from our products page here, go to Get Started with Hive. And this will let you sign up now for a trial. You can try it free for 14 days. Certainly get set up and see if this is going to be a fantastic tool set for you. So I'd like to open this up to any questions you might have. We want to make sure we answer all of your questions. We want to make sure that you understand a lot about how this tool can help you out. And so whatever questions you've got, feel free to throw them into the questions window, and I will spend as much time as is necessary here to answer those questions with you for you. If you're not going to stick around for the Q&A session, and I understand not everybody can do that, I want to thank you for the time that you've given me. And we do certainly look forward to seeing you in future CTC webinars. So also go to our corporate website, see other events we've got going. We're constantly running webinars, and our partners are constantly running webinars. So certainly take a look for that. Thank you all for the time you've given us. We do, again, look forward to seeing you in future webinars. We hope you found this a valuable session.